Welcome to A Quest for Metal. Today we are joined by a special guest. He's been on the channel before doing the most overrated albums of all time, and he's here once again to join me for the most underrated. So these are albums that you have to check out. If you don't know any of these albums on this list, your job is to check these albums out and then tell us in the comments below what you thought of these albums. So we're again joined by the Metal Meltdown, and of course, he's our guest. We'll let him go first with his first pick. So take it away.
Hey, what's fucking crappin', everybody? My name is Robert Walton. I am the host of the Metal Meltdown, and today I'm talking about some of the most underrated metal albums of all time. The first album I want to talk about is Too Fast for Love, the debut album from Mötley Crüe, released November 10th, 1981. Usually when we talk about Mötley Crüe, we're talking about records like Shout at the Devil and Girls, Girls, Girls and Dr. Feelgood, and that's all fine and dandy. I don't really have anything wrong with any of those records. Not really. I mean, I personally think Dr. Feelgood is very boring and very overproduced. I made that perfectly fucking clear last time I was on this channel, but I don't really hate it. I just think it's really overrated. Respectfully, it is the band's debut album, Too Fast for Love, that I personally flock towards. It is the band's most dangerous album, their most rebellious album, their sexiest, their catchiest, and to be honest, sonically their heaviest and most authentic. There are no overproduced and overly sappy power ballads to be found on this thing whatsoever. There are no incredibly processed and generic pop metal slogs to be found on this thing whatsoever. What you've got here is an exciting and exhilarating blend of 70s glam rock, late 70s and early 80s punk rock with the edge, the veracity, and the sheen of hard rock and heavy metal of the time. From the punky speed metal of Live Wire to the sleazy, sexy, hard rock rhythm and drawl of Take Me to the Top, the ultimate fucking stripper song, may I add. Not that I would know or anything, because, I'm a good boy, but, just saying. To the cheeky and anthemic power pop of tracks like Public Enemy No. 1 and On With the Show. Honestly, I can't really think of another album that so perfectly captures the attitude, the atmosphere, and the spirit of 1980s punk rock and metal in Los Angeles. It's a combination of the best elements of Cheap Trick, the New York Dolls, Kiss. It is infectious, it is sexy, it is just a damn solid fucking record from start to finish. And yet nobody fucking talks about this album. What the fuck?
Great pick, and for me, my first pick, I'm gonna pick one that I did a ranking for recently, Pantera with Power Metal. Yes, Power Metal by Pantera. A lot of fans kind of disregard all the older stuff. They're like, it's not the same. It's glam. It can't be as good. Not as good as Vulgar's display of power. My Baby. Not as good as My Baby. Well, it fucking is, alright? It goddamn is. Just because it has a different sound doesn't mean it's bad. Because the sound held within power metal is that of Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, more Def Leppard, more classic metal sound, and the guitar solos by Dimebag, just as good. And he's called Diamond Darrell on this one, but yeah, just as good. The guitar solos, the riffing, the vocal delivery by Phil is actually insane. He hits those high notes, and it's fantastic. High shrieks, amazing solos. What more could you want? This is an underrated album. No one talks about it. Everyone praises the new stuff. Everyone just dismisses the old stuff. But I'm here to tell you, no. Bad viewers. Listen to power metal. It's one of the best, and it's my favourite Pantera album. So go listen to it. Back to you.
Next up, we have Heavy Metal Maniac, the debut album from Exciter, released January 14th, 1983. Canada's contributions to heavy metal, to thrash metal, to speed metal are, generally speaking, underappreciated. I mean, sure, credit has absolutely been given to acts like Anvil and Voivod and Annihilator, and that's fucking great, but there are two key bands that are still to this day left out of the conversation entirely, and you know what? We're changing that today, starting with this particular album from this particular band. This thing is fucking nasty, dude. super abrasive, super in your face, super cutthroat. It fucking reeks of cigarettes and dried blood and sweat and cheap Canadian beer, while surprisingly remaining oh so goddamn catchy. Be it through the hypercharged melodic speed metal of the album's title track, Heavy Metal Maniac, the anthemic chest-bumping war anthem of Stand Up and Fight, or the almost Venom-esque Manicean carnage of tracks like Rising of the Dead, Mistress of Evil, and oh so many more. And you know, come to think of it, that's actually a really great description for Exciter in general. They are Canada's answer to a band like Venom. They are so raw, so punky, so visceral, so unapologetic and uncompromising. It's just an absolute banger from start to finish, an underappreciated gem of Canadian speed and thrash metal, which, may I add, is arguably one of the first real thrash metal albums ever made. It's just an absolute banger from start to finish, an underappreciated gem of Canadian speed and thrash metal, cram-packed with tasty fucking riffs and fist-pumping choruses. One that, may I add, arguably acts as one of the first real thrash metal records ever released, predating Metallica's Kill 'Em All by almost 6 fucking months.
So my next one is Anorexia Nervosa with Drudenhaus, and I probably said that wrong, but this one is an underrated band. They're a black metal, extreme metal band, similar to, say, Cradle of Filth, or Dimmu Borgir, but more like Cradle of Filth. So if you love Cradle of Filth, go check this band out. Crazy vocals, shrieking vocals, but the melodies in it, so infectious, so fun, so just upbeat and just fun. It's not like depressing kind of black metal, which I love, but it's not that kind of black metal. It is more happy, fun, Cradle of Filth kind of screeches and screams and melodies. It kind of like, say, Dusk in Her Embrace. So if you like Dusk in Her Embrace, Cruelty and the Beast, that kind of period, you'll love Anorexia. You will love this band. Underrated as hell. I think more people should check it out. If you love that kind of music, it's just, it's amazing. All their albums are awesome. Not just this one. This is my favourite, but it's not just this one. All their albums are awesome. They all pack a punch, and everyone should check it out. So, back to you.
Next up, we have Evil Invaders, the sophomore album from yet another Canadian speed and thrash metal band, Razor, released in October 1985. By this point, not only is the American thrash metal scene pretty well established, but so is the Canadian thrash metal scene, with Anvil and the aforementioned Exciter having already put out some extremely satisfying records, and bands like Voivod and Annihilator on the verge of releasing some of their classic works. But in between all of this lies Evil Invaders, an album that sticks out for a number of reasons in the Canadian thrash metal scene. It's not quite as melodic as Anvil and Exciter, and it's nowhere near the utter insanity that we would come to expect from Voivod. Instead, Evil Invaders is just plain fucking brutal. It is sharp, it is bloodthirsty, it is malicious, it is carnivorous. Whereas Heavy Metal Maniac sounded like a bunch of stupid punks drinking beer and having fun, Evil Invaders sounds like a fucking biker gang riding through town and destroying everything in sight. There are so many blunt and menacing riffs, the percussion consistently batters away like an actual jackhammer drilling into your brain. And the vocals are very raw, very strained, very anguished. It really does sound as if this particular singer isn't just barking into the microphone, he's barking into the microphone while downing a bottle of fucking whiskey. There's a sense of urgency and danger to this record that I would associate with bands like Creator and Exodus and very early Slayer. Something that is felt immediately the moment you press play and is felt consistently across the record. There are no lulls, there is no filler, there is no room to breathe, and traditional melody is almost nowhere to be found on here. Hands down one of the most sonically brutal thrash records of this era, and if we're being honest, one of my favorite thrash metal records of all time.
That is a great one as well. My next one is Gallowbraid with Ashes Eidolon. Ashes Eidolon. Definitely not said that right. This is fucking... this is majestic. This is a majestic album. This is black metal again, but this is of a folky kind of like Calden Brood, or I was going to say Summoning, but it's not really, kind of like Agalok, Calden Brood, Windir, that style of black metal. If that sounds good, if you like that sound of folky kind of black metal, you will love this. And, you know, if I'm being honest, this album is better than all those put together. It's better than any Agalok album. And I love Agalok, one of my favourite bands of all time. But this is better. They only made one album, and this is the only album, but it's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Like the folky parts, the melodies in it, the singing, it's beautiful. It's one of the best albums in the genre. Everyone needs to check it out. Even if you don't like black metal, I think you'll like this album. It's one of those kind of albums. It brings people together. Gallowbraid, beautiful album. Shame there's only one from the band, so you can easily go through the discography, and that's something you should do because this album's sick. So yeah, you too, Meltdown, go check this album out as well. So yeah, what can I say? It's a masterpiece, 10 out of 10. Go check it out. Back to you.
Next up, we're finally getting out of the 80s with It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere, the debut album from Slash's Snakepit, released February 14th, 1995. Put simply, this is the best Guns N' Roses album that Guns N' Roses never made. This album was recorded during a very puzzling and confusing period in Guns N' Roses history, as the band was struggling to agree on what the musical direction of their next album should be. Axl Rose was taking a huge interest in industrial music, and on top of that, wanted to expand on the more progressive flavors of the Use Your Illusion album. Whereas Slash, one of the few original members left in Guns N' Roses at the time, was more interested in getting back to the band's roots, exploring more traditional hard rock with a little bit of blues rock swagger and heavy metal brutality. Eventually, Slash got so frustrated that he finally said, "Fuck it, if Axl doesn't want to record this material, I'll fucking do it myself," resulting in this side project, Slash's Snakepit, and this debut album, It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere, featuring the aforementioned Slash, obviously, but also featuring some of his Guns N' Roses bandmates, namely Gilby Clarke and Matt Sorum, alongside Alice in Chains bassist Mike Inez and one-time Jellyfish singer Eric Dover. The album features some of Slash's best guitar work and songcraft of his career. From the rock and roll whirlwinds of Dime Store Rock, the dreadful Western American blues of Neither Can I, to the beautiful, soaring, elegant power ballad of Beggars and Hangers On, with an absolutely killer hook, some killer organ work, and one of Eric Dover's best vocal performances ever. It is truly a crime that this motherfucker never really did anything after this album, because this motherfucker can fucking sing, dude! The end result being one of the most satisfying, invigorating, and outright brutal rock records of the mid-90s.
Nice. My next pick is, I've talked about it before, Iepetus, The Body Cosmic. Came out last year, or the year before? Yeah, the year before. It should have been my album of the year, but I heard it December. As soon as I did my album of the year list, I then heard it and I was like, fuck, this would have been number one. That's how good it is. This is prog. Spacey metalcore prog. It's fantastic. It's got screaming in, it's got beautiful singing in, it's got excerpts in, spoken word sections, but it actually works. It's similar to Neoboliver Scaris, Opeth. If you like any bands like that, you'll fucking love Iepetus. It's got this whole Space Mother kind of theme going on. The artwork is fantastic. It's an all-round masterpiece. And the first album was fantastic as well, but this one blows out the water. Long songs, epic songs, spacey prog. You know what I like, and you should know what you like. So if this sounds like it'll tickle your balls, then go give this a listen. Give them some love, because, you know, they're not a big band, so go download them, buy them, shower in them, whatever you fancy, but just listen to this fucking album and tell me what you think.
Finally, that brings us to The Devil's Cut, the third studio album from White Wizzard, released June 3rd, 2013. I have really mixed feelings about the retro, hard rock, and heavy metal revivalist sound that we've seen emerge in the last decade. Don't get me wrong, there have been some really exciting bands with some really exciting records, like Haunt, Spirit Adrift, Eternal Champion, Huntress, Striker, Skullfist, but there have also been some very lame and generic and derivative kind of old school rock and metal bands popping up in the last couple of years. Bands like Rival Sons, bands like British Lion, bands like Diamonds, arguably even Greta Van Fleet, who have made a career out of essentially ripping off Led Zeppelin to a fucking teat. Ironically, it's those mixed feelings that make me love The Devil's Cut as much as I do. I mean, this thing, on top of being incredibly authentic to the nostalgic 80s heavy metal, speed metal, and proto-power metal sound, also has a lot of extra flair that you just don't see in a lot of the bands that we've talked about. The production is absolutely stellar. The musicianship is so fucking tight, it is insane. The vocal performances from Joseph Michael, currently a member of Witherfallen Sanctuary, absolutely other fucking worldly, pulling influence from Nuabum and traditional hard rock and speed metal and thrash metal and power metal and progressive metal, from bands like Iron Maiden and Megadeth and Dream Theater and Crimson Glory and Queensryche and so many more, all culminating in some of the most addictive retro heavy metal tunery I think I've ever heard in my life. It's an album so fucking fantastic from start to finish that White Wizzard literally couldn't recreate it even if they fucking tried. It really is a lightning in a bottle kind of album, and honestly the gold standard for what should be expected of the retro heavy metal sound. Because it's one thing to just play the same old Judas Priest and Motorhead riffs over and over and over and over again, but it's another thing to take those ideas and to transform them into something totally fucking bizarre and exciting and unique and different, which is exactly what White Wizzard did on this album. And that's it for me, I think. Thank you to Quest for Metal for inviting me back on the channel, for giving me an opportunity to ramble and rave to my heart's content once again. Once again, if you like what I had to say, check out my fucking channel. More importantly, check out these fucking albums, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.
Thank you to the Metal Meltdown for coming on the channel again and putting up with me. But yeah, go subscribe to him. So now let's get to my final pick, and it is Ancestors in Dreams and Time. From spacey prog to prog, but also it's not spacey in theme, but it's spacey in, say, hypnoticism. It's very relaxing, this album. Such cool melodies, elongated, they're all long songs, you know, elongated passages within the songs, amazing hypnotic riffs and melodies, solos are fantastic. There's one solo which lasts for at least like 6 minutes, almost reminds me of like Leonard Skinner's Freebird. Yes, In Dreams and Time is a fantastic listen for all you prog heads. Anyone who loves like Pink Floyd, Rush especially, Dream Theater. It's that kind of style. Fate's Warning, that kind of style. But it's also kind of, if you like stuff like Elder or Pallbearer, that kind of drifts you off doomy kind of status, it's kind of like that as well. Mix them both together, you get Ancestors, and this album is one of my favourites. Been one of my favourites for a long time. I always forget about it when I do these fucking album lists, but I didn't this time. So yeah, go give this album a listen. Give it some love. So once again, thank you to the Metal Meltdown for coming on the channel. Go subscribe to him. Let me know what you guys thought of this video. Do you want more collabs? Who do you want collabs with? Let me know, and we'll see you again on another Quest for Metal.